word of Adonai came to me, human being. Make Jerusalem realize how disgusting her practices are, so that Adonai Elohim is telling Jerusalem, by origin and birth, you are of the land of the Canaani. Your father was an Emori. Your mother was a Hittite. As for your birth, on the day you were born, nobody cut your umbilical cord, washed you, or cleaned you off, rubbed salt on you, or wrapped you in cloth. No one seeing you had enough pity on you to do any of these things. No one had any compassion on you. Instead, you were thrown into an open field in your own filth on the day you were born. I passed by and saw you there, wallowing in your own blood. And as you lay in your blood, I said to you, live. Yes, I said to you, as you lay in your blood, live. I will increase your numbers like plants growing in a field. You did increase. You developed. You reached puberty. Your breast appeared. And your hair grew long. But you were naked and exposed. Again, I passed by you, looked at you, and saw you in the time you had come. The time for love. So I spread my cloak over you, cover your private parts, and entered into a covenant with you, says Adonai Elohim, and you became mine. Then I bathed you in water, washed the blood off you, and anointed you with oil. I also clothed you with an embroidered gown, gave you a fine leather sandals to wear, put a fine linen headband on your head, and covered you with silk. Gave you jewelry to wear, bracelets for your hands, a necklace for your neck, a ring for your nose, earrings for your ears, and a beautiful crown for your head. Thus you were decked out with gold and silver. Your clothing was of fine linen, silk, and richly embroidered cloth. You ate the finest flour, honey, and olive oil. You grew increasingly beautiful. You were fit to be a queen. Your fame spread among the nations because of your beauty, because it was perfect due to me having bestowed my own splendor on you, says Adonai Elohim. But you put your trust in your own beauty and began prostituting yourself because of your fame, soliciting everyone passing by and accepting all comers. You took your clothes and used them to decorate with bright colors the high places and made for yourself, and there you continued prostituting yourself. Such things shouldn't happen, and in the future they won't. You also took your beautiful jewels, made of my gold and my silver, which I had given you, and made for yourself a male image, with which you continued to prostitute yourself. You took your embroidered clothing and covered them. You set my olive oil and my incense in front of them, and you took my food, which I had given you, my fine flour, olive oil, and honey that I had given you to eat, and you set it in front of them to give a pleasant aroma. That is how it was, says Adonai Elohim. Moreover, your sons and daughters whom you bore me, you took and sacrificed them to devour. Were these fornications of yours a casual matter? Killing my children, handing them over, and setting them apart for these idols? In all your disgusting practices and fornications, you never remembered the condition you were in when you were young, naked, exposed, and wallowing in your own blood. So after all the wickedness of yours, woe! Woe to you, says Adonai Elohim. Built platforms and made for yourself high places on every open space. You built your high spaces in every street corner, turning your beauty into an abomination, spreading your legs for every passerby, and multiplying your acts of fornication. You had sex with your big-membered Egyptian neighbor and engaged in fornication over and over, just to provoke me. So now I have stretched out my hand over you, diminished your ration of food, and put you at the mercy of those who hate you, daughter of the Plishtim. Find your lewd behavior revolting. Still unsatisfied, you act like a whore also with the people of Ashur. Yes, you fornicated with them and were not satisfied. You multiplied your acts of fornications with the land of traders, the Casdim, and still weren't satisfied. You were so weak-willed, says Adonai Elohim. You do all these things behaving like a shameless whore, building your platforms on every street corner, making your high places in every open space. And yet you weren't like a whore, because you scorn getting paid. Here is a wife who committed adultery, who goes in bed with strangers instead of her husband, but also instead of receiving gifts like every other prostitute. You give gifts to your lovers. You bribe them to come to you from all over the place and have sex with you. You're the opposite of other women. You solicit the fornication. You aren't solicited. You pay them. They don't pay you. You're the opposite. All right, you whore, listen to the word of Adonai. Adonai Elohim says, because your filth has been poured out and your privates exposed through your acts of fornications with your lovers, and because of all the idols and your disgusting practices, and because of the blood of your children which you gave them. Therefore, look, I'm going to gather all your lovers to whom you have been so very nice, all the ones you hate right along with all the ones you love. I will gather them against you from all over the place to expose your private parts to them, so that they will see you completely naked. I will pronounce to you a sentence that applies to women who commit adultery and murder. I will bring on you the death decreed for ferocious jealousy, furious jealousy. Yes, I will hand you over to them, and they will make a ruin of your platforms, tear down your high places, strip you of your clothes, and take away your jewels, and leave you naked and exposed. They will also bring a mob against you, who will stone you to death and hack you to pieces with their swords. They will burn your house to the ground and execute judgment against you in the presence of many women. I will make you stop fornicating, and you will never again pay for a lover. Yes, I will satisfy my fury against you, but after that my jealousy will leave you, and I will calm down and no longer be angry, because you didn't remember the condition you were in when you were young, but engaged me with all these things. Therefore, I will bring the consequences of all your ways on your own head, says Adonai Elohim. You committed these obscenities in addition to all your other disgusting practices. Everyone who quotes Proverbs will quote this proverb against you: like mother, like daughter. Yes, you are your mother's daughter, who despised her husband and children. You are the sister of your sisters, who despise their husband and children. Your mother was a Hittite, and your father an Emory. Moreover, your older sister Shamron, who lives at your left, she and her daughters, and your younger sister, living at your right, is Sodom with her daughters. You didn't merely live by their ways and act according to their disgusting practices, but in a very short time you acted more corruptly than in all your ways. As I live, says Adonai Elohim, your sister Sodom has not done, neither she nor her daughters, as much evil as you have done, you and your daughters. The crimes of your sister Sodom were pride and gluttony. She and her daughters were careless and complacent, so that they did nothing to help the poor and needy. They were arrogant, committed disgusting acts before me, so that when I saw it, I swept them away. Shamron did not commit even half as many sins as you did. You committed many more disgusting acts than your sister. In fact, in comparison with all the disgusting acts you committed, they seem innocent. But you too must bear your disgrace. For by your passing judgment that your sisters were innocent, though your having committed sins worse than theirs, they were shown to be more righteous than you. So be ashamed. Bear the disgrace you deserve, for making your guilty sisters seem innocent. I will end their exile, the exile of Sodom and her daughters, the exile of Shamron and her daughters, the exile of your captives there among them, so that you can bear your own shame and experience the disgrace you deserve for all you have done to shield them from feeling their own guilt. Your sister Sodom with her sister Shamron, her daughters will return to their previous condition, and you with your daughters will return to your previous condition. When you were so proud, you spoke with contempt about your sister Sodom, for your own wickedness was exposed. Now the daughter of Amram mock you, as do her neighbors, and the daughters of the Plishtim on every side are repulsed by you. You have brought in all yourself with your depravities and disgusting practices, says Adonai. Here's what Adonai Elohim says. I will do to you as you have done. You treated the oath with contempt by breaking the covenant. Nevertheless, I will remember the covenant I made with you and when you were a girl, and I will establish everything in the covenant with you. Then you will remember your behavior and to be ashamed of it as receive your older and younger sisters and make them your daughters, even though the covenant with you does not cover that. And I will reestablish my covenant with you. Then you will know that I am Adonai, so that you'll remember and be so ashamed that you will never open your mouth again. So ashamed will you be when I have forgiven you all that you have done, says Adonai Elohim. The word of Adonai came to me, human being. Propound this riddle, tell the house everything, this allegory. Say that Adonai Elohim says this. A big eagle, great wings, long pinions full of var-colored feathers, came to the Levaon and took the top of the cedar. He cropped off the topmost of its young twigs, carried them to a land of traders, and set them down into a place of merchants. He also took some of the seed in the land and planted it in fertile soil, placing it where was abundant water. As it grew a willow, grew to become fruitful vine, sprawling over the ground, its branches turned toward him, and its roots were under him. Thus it became a vine sprouting branches and putting forth shoots. There was another big eagle with great eagle wings, many feathers. The vine bent its roots towards him and put its branches towards him, so that he might water it more than in the bed where it was planted. It had been planted in good soil, near plenty of water, so that it would produce branches, bear fruit, and become a noble vine. Say that Adonai Elohim asks, will it succeed? Won't he pull it up by the roots and cut off its fruit, so that it dries up? All its sprouting leaves wither? There will be no great power, and few people there when it is plucked up by its roots. Will it thrive because it was planted? Won't it wither altogether when the east wind strikes it? Yes, it will wither right there in the beds where it was growing. The word of Adonai came to me. Say to this rebellious house, don't you know what these things mean? Tell them, here, the king of Baal came to Jerusalem, took its king and princes, and brought them to himself in Baal. Then he took a member of the royal family and made a covenant with him, putting him under oath. He removed the powerful leaders of the land so that this kingdom of his would stay humble and not develop aspirations of its own. Rather, it would keep his covenant and live accordingly. But this man rebelled and sent representatives to Egypt in order to obtain horses and a sizable army. Can he succeed? Can someone who does such things escape punishment? Can he break the covenant and still escape punishment? As I live, says Adonai Elohim, in the place where the king who gave him his throne lives, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he broke, there with him above all, I'll swear that he will die. Pharaoh with his mighty army and numerous troops will give him to help in war. Will give him no help in war. When they raise siege works and build fortified towers to destroy many people because he despised the oath by breaking the covenant to which he had sworn allegiance, having done all these things, he will not escape punishment. Therefore, Adonai Elohim says, as I live, I swear that it is my oath, He has despised my covenant. He has broken, and I will bring this on his own head. I will spread my net over him, and he will be caught in the snare. I will bring him to Vol, and I will bring him to judgment there for breaking faith with me. The elite troops among his forces will die by the sword, and those who survive will be scattered to every wind. And you will know that I, Adonai, said it. Adonai Elohim says, from the tops of this tall cedar, from its highest branch, I will take a shoot, plant it myself on a high and prominent mountain. I will plant it on the highest mountain in Israel, where it will put out branches, bear fruit, and become a noble cedar. Under it I will live. Under it will live all kinds of birds, winged creatures, and every description will live there in the shadow of its branches. Then all the trees in the field will know that I am Adonai. Bring down the tall tree and raise up the low tree. Wither the green tree and make it withered tree bear fruit. I, Adonai, have spoken, and I will do it. The word of Adonai came to me. What does it mean that you keep quoting this proverb in the land of Israel? When parents eat sour grapes, their children's teeth are set on edge. As I live, says Adonai Elohim, I swear that you will never again quote this proverb in Israel. Look, all lives belong to me. Both the parent's life and the child's lives are equally mine. So if a person who sins himself, who must die. Consider someone who is righteous, who does what is lawful and right. He doesn't eat on the mountains or raise his eyes towards the idols of the house of Israel. He doesn't defile his neighbor's wife or touch a woman during her time of menstrual impurity. He doesn't wrong anyone. He returns any pledged property a debtor has given a collateral for a loan. He takes nothing by robbery, but gives his food to the hungry and clothing to those who need it. He neither demands nor accepts interest on a loan. He refrains from what is evil. He judges honestly between one person and another. In short, he lives according to my laws and observes my rulings, so he acts faithfully. Such a person is righteous, and he will certainly live, says Adonai Elohim. Now suppose that he is a father of a son who is a robber, a murderer, or who does any of these things to a brother, whereas the father himself does none of them. He eats on the mountains, defies his neighbor's wife, wrongs the poor and needy, takes by robbery, doesn't restore pledged property, raises his eyes towards idols, engages in disgusting practices, demands and accepts interest. Should he live? He will not live, because he has engaged in all these disgusting practices. He must be put to death. His blood is on him. But now suppose he has a son who sees all his father's sins that he committed, thinks about them, and behaves differently. He doesn't eat on the mountains, raise his eyes to idols of the house of Israel, defile his neighbor's wife, wrong others, keep pledged property, or take by robbery, but gives his food to the hungry and clothing to those who need it. He refrains from oppressing the poor, and neither demands nor accepts interest. He obeys my rulings and lives according to my laws. So he will not die for his father's sins, but will certainly live. Yet his father, because he oppressed so cruelly, committed robbery against his brother, and never did anything good among the people, he will die for his sins. You ask, why doesn't the son bear his father's guilt? When the son has done what is lawful and right, has kept all my laws and obeyed them, he will certainly live. The person who sins is the one who will die. The son is not to bear his father's guilt with him, nor is the father to bear his son's guilt with him. But the righteousness of the righteous will become his own, and the wickedness of the wickedness will be his own. However, if a wicked person repents of all the sins he committed, keeps my laws, and does what is lawful and right, then he will certainly live and not die. None of the transgressions which he committed will be remembered against him. For the righteousness that he has done, he will live. Do I take any pleasure at all in having a wicked person die? Asked Adonai Elohim. Wouldn't I prefer that he turn from his ways and live? On the other hand, when a righteous person turns away from his righteousness and commits wickedness by acting in accordance with his disgusting practices that the wicked person does, will he live? None of the righteous deeds he has done will be remembered. For the trespass and sins he has committed, he will die. So now you say, Adonai's way isn't fair. Listen, house of Israel, it is my way that is unfair, or your way that is unfair. When the righteous person turns away from his righteousness and commits wickedness, he will die for it. For the wickedness he commits, he will die. When the wicked person turns away from the wickedness he has committed and does what was lawful and right, he will save his life. Because he thinks it over and repents for all transgressions he committed, he will certainly live and not die. Yet the house of Israel says, Adonai's way isn't fair. Because of Israel, it's my way that aren't fair, are unfair, or your ways that are unfair. Therefore, house of Israel, I will judge each of according to his own ways, says Adonai Elohim. Repent, turn yourselves away from all your transgressions, so that you will not be a stumbling block that brings guilt upon you. Throw far away from yourselves all the crimes you have committed, and make for yourselves a new heart and a new spirit. For why should you die, house of Israel? I take no pleasure in the death of anyone who dies, says Adonai Elohim. So turn yourselves around and live.